Movie title is better, The Bludgeoning or Last Night in Salem? Micah Haley, film producer, screenwriter, and thank you for this question. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about titles. Please feel free to ask me more of these. I will give you my honest feedback, and hopefully it'll help you out. Some of my background is marketing and journalism. I used to own a film magazine, so I know a lot about how, titles are going to be perceived by audiences because I've gotten all the hate mail over the years. Feel free to ask me questions about this. I do have pretty decent insight into how it's going to be perceived and what your title is going to be connoting to an audience member or a potential audience member that encounters it for the first time. Clear winner here, in my opinion, is Last Night in Salem. That's a really great title. It's very clearly a horror film. The word Salem is not really used that often in other genres, so by saying Last Night in Salem, it just instantly feels like Halloween. The word night kind of supports this as well. Last night feels like something terrible is going to happen. And your closest comp for a similar title is Last Night in Soho, which is also a horror film. I know a lot of people didn't see that movie for some reason, but it's really excellent, and it's really sort of an homage to Italian giallo horror films. So, you're right in that area. That title is great. It stands out. It rolls off the tongue. Audience members are going to be able to remember it, and it's going to instantly tell people what your movie is. Why don't I like The Bludgeoning as much? Well, for starters, it's kind of a mouthful. I mean, even somebody like me who's at peak caffeine right now and had great sleep last night, it's just kind of like a little bludgeoning, it's not a fun word to say, and there's a diphthong in the middle of it, and it just doesn't roll off the tongue like Last Night in Salem. In general, really long words also don't make great titles. It's just harder for people to remember, harder for them to spell, harder for them to digest. It's a little bit of a lesser observation, but it is a commonality that I think has some merit. Things that The Bludgeoning does right, it tells you there's a bludgeoning. So this is probably a horror movie, and just from my years of experience with that subgenre, which I love, The Bludgeoning feels like a crazy, hardcore, bloody $500,000 or just under $1 million lower budget movie. It doesn't feel like an elevated horror classic directed by William Friedkin. I think Last Night in Salem is actually a better title than Last Night in Soho. Last Night in Soho feels like it's about fashion and something like that, but really it's a horror film, so you want to be obvious.